team out of halftime leading 27-7. What adjustments did you feel Ray Peck made to come back the way they did eventually win the game?
Yeah, we had a great first half and a poor second half last Friday night. And biggest one that we gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown that got them back in the football game on the first snap. And it was unfortunate because we had elected to kick both halves. The wind was so strong in that storm that we won the kick, and it's the first time that I can remember we chose to go ahead, won the toss and then go ahead and chose to kick, and it worked great in the first half, and that we had 21 first quarter points when we had the wind and had them down there with it. And then the second half, hopefully using the same philosophy, they elected to receive and kick down there, and then giving up a kickoff return was really something to set us up for a poor half, and we didn't do a very good job of adjusting after that happened with that. Yes?
What do you do to keep your team morale up?
We talked about that a little bit, and I just told them we can't ignore the mistakes that we made in that second half. At the same time, we have to look at the positives of how well we played in the first half of that game and build from those, because we did do some great things in that first half, getting that big lead, and then learn from what we did wrong. Whether we had breakdowns in offensively, defensively, and in special teams that all contributed to us getting beat at the very end there of that game on Friday. Yes.
After giving up 31 points in the second half, was this just a lack of focus, or were there some better team that
I think there's some focus issues. We had some silly penalties that prolonged their drives. We had one of their drives we had 45 yards of penalties within that, and that's something you just can't do. So give up over almost a half of a field in penalties on that. So to me, that's some lack of focus. We had some plays we just didn't execute well offensively, and some mistakes in the kicking game. I mentioned the kickoff return for a touchdown. We also had a punt that was fumbled, a punt return that was fumbled that set up a touchdown for them, and then also they blocked a punt. So there's a lot that went into that. Coaching mistakes that we made, maybe putting our kids in a poor situation in the with the weather the way it was and things that we'll probably do different if we're doing it over again. And but I think, there's a lack of focus maybe in some parts of it, and then just unfortunate circumstances, and when we make mistakes, that we made them and they were able to capitalize on them. Yes?
So obviously you didn't have the outcome that you would like, but there were some good things in the first half. Can you talk about the positive stuff?
Yeah, in our first half, when we were ahead 27-7 at the halftime, we came out right off the bat and scored. First play from scrimmage, got a turnover from Ray Peck. Weren't able to capitalize off that because we turned the ball right back over to them, and that was our one of our two turnovers we had on offense that night with that. But we came right back, and Brock Dorothy hit Eric Greeley for a 50-yard pass for a touchdown. And then Eric Greeley also had a kickoff return for a touchdown after they scored on one of their drives. So there were some really big plays in there. One thing I was really proud of our kids, right before halftime, we managed the clock extremely well and got down and by using our timeouts and just being really good. We scored with half second left on the clock right before half, and it was just a good play that the quarterback actually checked down to about his third option and found Brady Newland for a touchdown pass. Brock Dorothy did, and we're able to get that score, and then the extra point right going into halftime. It gave us some great momentum going into halftime, and really as good a football as we played right in that little area right there. And that's what, going back to that previous question, we're building on those areas right there, and I'm hoping we can come out and play with that same passion and fire that we did during that time frame as we go into Lee Summit North this week. Yes?
It seemed to be a tough way to lose a game in the final minute of the actual outcome of the game. What did you tell your players after the game ended?
I told them, I felt like a lot of things had to go wrong for us to lose that game, and they did in the end. And the biggest thing that we can take from that is learn the lessons. As a team that we had so many new kids coming into the season, and most of them have been out there for 2 games now, but we have to learn from those and know that mistakes are going to cost you against a good football team like Ray Peck, and we have to be able to learn from those and hopefully not make them in the future and really make us a better football team as we go through this season, because we know it's going to be tough every Friday night that we go out. Yes?
What kind of
Okay, well, every week we follow the same practice format in terms of our schedule and design. We do a different every week as coaches. We study the opponent and look at what they're vulnerable to, what they're good at, and adjust our game plan accordingly. So we'll be going through. We normally don't adjust our base plays, but we adjust a lot of formations or how we run them, or maybe the personnel we use within those groups. Offensively, defensively, we look. So much can change from an offense from even year to year, from game to game with different opponents. And we look at which defense is the best to put against them in different situations. And we'll adjust those throughout our week of practice and practice those situations. Our kids get a scatter report over the weekend. They study it that the coaches put together. And then we come in and walk through and practice against it on Monday. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are big hitting days that we do, where we go out and we really go full speed against those working that game plan in against that opponent's looks from our scout team on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then wrap everything up on Thursday. So it'll be a lot of the same schedule, but every week we adjust to that opponent. Yes?
Junior Brock Dorothy's been playing well. Will he continue to be a starter throughout the season?
This week he will be. We treat our quarterback position just like any other position, that there's constant competition, and he did a nice job last week of managing the game in some really bad conditions, and we were proud of, from a turnover standpoint, we did pretty well, in the turnover margin in terms of, hanging on the football. Running backs, David Graves and Matthew Zumba did a very good job, because we really had to adjust our game plan. A lot of the stuff that we had worked on throughout the week, we just knew was not going to work in those conditions that we had, and we adjusted down into the things we could do, and we're trying to just execute them that night. Yes?
So East Summit North is up next. What will you expect from them, and then what will you do differently on the road than what you would do at home?
All right. With Lee Summit North, they're a team that we won a close game with last year. Very talented team. They right now are 1-1. They have beat Ruskin this past week, and then they lost to Columbia Hickman in week 1. And we know this is a game that with a home conference game, they're going to play extremely well down there. They have a beautiful stadium, and they'll be ready to go for us on Friday night. As far as a road game, what changes for us, we leave earlier than we do, and that's the main thing that we do that's different. We're in a situation where with us playing at Jewel and not having a home stadium, that we're kind of used to traveling somewhere and getting going. So the difference will be just a little longer in the bus, but on the way there and the way back. But our routine really stays the same other than that. All right.
Coach,
Yes.
what do you do after a game like this? And unfortunately, we're going to have losses like this from time to time. But what do you do in the game or in the film room? You take a little more time to kind of go through things, or just kind of walk us through what goes on in the film room after a game?
Okay, what we do, and every school does this a little bit differently, but we have the kids that played that game. We stay that night on Friday night and watch the film with the kids right afterwards as a coaching staff, and we have the coaches sit with the position groups. We go through the game. Usually takes an hour and a half or so. Kids take notes. We grade the kids. The coaches grade themselves, and the coaches grade the players, or sometimes the players even chart and grade themselves as we go through. And we just look for things that we can correct and do better. And then that kind of concludes what we do with the kids. As a coaching staff, with ours, each of our coaches on our staff has different aspects that they do. That night before we leave, we have our film graded. We get all of our opponent scout film ready and do those things. And then we work on it over the weekend, then meet on Sunday nights as a staff and put together our game plan that we're going to use that week. And using our computer system, Huddle, we're able to then send out our game plan to the kids through this program, and it lets us know when they watch it. So we have an idea of who's watched their game plan, who's prepared for the upcoming game. And that's kind of how our process works. We spend some time looking back, and then we also spend time over the weekend looking forward toward our opponent. Yes.
On the game changing play where Matthew dropped the punt, was he not supposed to catch it, or did you really just kind of block it?
Oh, on that play, it was a big play in our game where we had a punt that was he was hit right when he caught it, and we fumbled the play. I told him after the game I took complete responsibility for that. We should have not had him back there in those conditions. We were hoping to gain some field position, and we'd fielded some punts earlier. At that point, when we put him in a spot with the weather and things, we should have just had him clear out and do a safe punt and hope that it made it in the end zone back out to the 20. It was one of those where their punter got off a very good punt, and before he hadn't really done that, he kicked some line drives out of bounds. And this one he got off, it was nice and high, and had some great hang time there, able to get a return guy right down him. And definitely a big play in the game, and one that I would, definitely doing over. I would not have made the same call. I wouldn't have had him out there with that. Yeah. Yes.
How did the weather affect your game at all?
Well, it was a big factor, and as you look at it, obviously both teams had to play in it, and teams all over the Metro had to play in it that night. But it was just a prolonged rain event with extremely high winds, and what it did for us, it cut down on the amount of plays that we were able to utilize, and kind of put us into maybe a safer mode offensively than we were planning on going into the game. So it did change things. At the same time, it's an even playing field for both schools out there. Reminded me, from a weather standpoint, I was in a game in 2000, they called the Ice Bowl, where there was a sheet of ice all over, and it was on Metro Sports that night. And I believe the conditions were worse for this, just in terms of football standpoint. It wasn't as cold, obviously, but in terms of just being able to play the game and execute how we'd like to, it was really tough conditions. Yes?
What is the message you guys send to the team going into Friday?
Well, going into Friday, and we had practice last night, and talked to them a little bit. And we just told them we got to capitalize on what we did well, and they can be that team we had in the first half, and hopefully we won't see that one we had in the second half again. And as coaches, we know we're going to see a little bit of both. We're going to keep working toward being as good as we can be. And we got a great young group of kids that come to work hard every day, and I know they're going to continue to get better. And hopefully we're excited about Friday night, being able to get back out there and being able to perform and hopefully go down and get a win. Thank you. All right, thank you for coming today. Thanks.
The weekly Coaches News Conference on KLPS TV is brought to you by Hawthorne Bank, a proud sponsor of Liberty School District. At Hawthorne Bank, we understand the importance of strong community in a strong school district. We also understand the importance of strong financial future for our school district's families and for our local businesses. Hawthorne Bank, with you every step. And by Jackson Hewitt. For all your tax needs, personal or business, rely on tax professionals at Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, a full-service tax preparation professional. Jackson Hewitt,